Income tax 2020, tax software example, residential energy property credit. Come in, relax with income tax 2020. Here we are in our Intuit tax software. You don't need the Intuit tax software to follow along, although I do believe they have a 30-day free trial. So if you can get access to a demo version or a promo version to practice with, it could be a good tool to use. We're going to be focusing in on the Form 1040, focusing in on basically page 2, which will have the credits related to energy property credits. We're going to be going back and forth from the data input to the forms so that we can run different scenarios, the software making it easier to do so. Starting point, we're going to have this single filer, that being Eric Smith, living in Beverly Hills 90210. We have then the $100,000 up top on the wages. We have the $12,400 as the standard deduction that is being taken for a single filer, and then the $87,600 for the taxable income at this time. Page 2 then, where our focus will then be, is going to be on the credits that will be applied here. So we have the tax being calculated at the $15,110. We're looking here on line 20, which is where the credit will be. It's going to be pulled from Schedule 3, line 7. So if we then go to Schedule 3, line 7, which doesn't have anything in it yet, but we're going to say Schedule 3, line 7 is going to be here. And that's going to be where the residential energy credit is, where we would then need to attach the form 5695, which is what we'll take a look at shortly. So let's go ahead and start to populate. I'm going to go into my detail over here. We're in our credits screen now. The two we're going to take a look at is the non-business energy property credit and the residential energy efficiency property credit. So if I take a look at the first one here, the non-business energy property credit, we're going to basically assume the home here. Notice we could have the prior years that we need to input. Now, if you're using software and you claimed it in the past, then the software should help you to know whether or not you had prior years of claiming it. If not, then that's going to be necessary because it could affect the amount that you can claim in the current year. And then we have a difference on the exterior windows. And again, we have the prior years for basically the exterior windows because, once again, there could be basically a limit that's different for the exterior windows costs. So we might take a look at that. And then we have the qualified material or asphalt. We have the energy efficient building property, qualified furnace or hot water boiler, and circular fan used in the furnace. And then we got qualified costs paid for other joint owner. So that's going to be our major categories there. If we go then to the residential energy efficient property, then again, we're going to basically assume it's for the house. We may have then a rollover from the prior year or carried forward from some kind of prior years. If you're using tax software and that is the case, then it should be easier to do because it'll roll over automatically from prior years. If not, or if it's the first tax return for a particular client, if it's complex to the point that there's rollovers, you might want to enter the entire return into the prior year and then allow the rollovers to roll over as you kind of pro forma the taxes to the current year. So then we have these solar electric property costs here. We've got the solar water heating property costs, the fuel cell. These are kind of like the energy generation type of things as opposed to basically keeping the energy in type of things. Kilowatt capacity of fuel cell property, and then the small wind property costs. So let's start a couple of these. Let's enter a few of these and just test them out. So if we take a look at this one first, the residential energy efficiency property, we're going to start with the solar. I'm going to say we put like 5,000 here. So 5,000 in the solar. I'm going to say, let's go on over to the forms. Going to remove the checkbox up top, and we'll take a look at 5695, the residential energy credits. So we have the qualified solar property costs. We have the 5,000, and then we're going to multiply line 5 by 26%. So we're getting 26% of it, that being the 1,300. The 1,300 then in essence carrying on down to the 1,300 and then flowing forward to Schedule 3. So that'll flow into Schedule 3 here, and that'll flow in then to the 1040 page 2 at the 1,300. So if we then move it on down, I'm going to say we're going to move it on down here to 5,000 in the solar water heater property. So solar water heater property, it's going to move it on down here to the solar water heater for the 5,000. We got the 1,300 then being calculated once again at the 1,300, and then that would pull forward ultimately to page 2 of the 1040. There's the 1,300 here. back to the to the form 5695. Now those are probably the most common items. Now if you did have a carryover, if there was some kind of carryover from the prior period, then we're going to say pull that back on over, and page 2 we have the 3,000 here, and then if we look at the schedule 3, we've got the carryover residential energy, and that's coming from the 5695, and then the 5695 is not going to be up top, but it's going to be a carryover down here that's happening from a prior period. So once again, if there's some kind of carryover from period to period, I would probably enter it into the prior year software, make sure I have everything lined up correctly, and then pro forma the software forward just to make sure I got everything lined up. And so now we're going to go to the non-business energy property credit, and I'm going to scroll down. Let's start off with the qualified material asphalt roof. Let's say 5,000 there. And then if I go back to the forms, we're going to go back to the forms. We're still on the 5695, but now we're on page 2 of it because this is the non-business energy property. We have the 5,000 in 19C, and then it's basically multiplying that times the 10%. So we're getting 10% of it, which would be the 500. 500 in essence falling over or carrying through to the form 1040 page 2, and there's our 500 there once again. Let's go back on over. Now let's say we claimed a credit in a prior year, like 400 in the prior year, and we already got the credit. We got a credit in the prior year, and I go back on over, and that's going to limit our credit now in the current year. So that's why we have all that prior year. Did you claim the credit in the prior year type of thing that is going on? So we have all these kind of limitations and caps that are going on because, again, the law has been kind of rolling forward for some time now in the negotiation type of process. So let's go down and say, well, what if we have the energy efficient building property, put the 5,000 there, and we're capped here at the 300. So if I go back to the form 5695, we're capped at the 300 there. So even if I was to put in the amount in the data input of like 200, then I'll have the 200, and we're capped off at basically the 300, that 200, then rolling forward to the second page of the 1040. Once again, rolling forward to the second page of the 1040. Back on over, and let's go down to the qualified furnace and hot water boiler. Let's put the 5,000, and you can see we're capped here. They're capping us at 150. So even if I went back over and said, I put 100 there, then we're going to be picking up the 100, and that's going to pull over then to the 1040, and that's going to be on page 2 of the 1040. So page 2 of the 1040, there we have that. So different caps for the different types of property as they kind of negotiated this thing. And then let's put the 5,000 in the circular fan used in the furnace. Circular fan in the furnace. Got to have the fan in the furnace. So that's capped at 50. So we got a pretty low cap on the circular fan in the furnace. And so even if I put like 40 in there, then we're picking up the 40, and that 40 is flowing forward to the second page of the 1040. Second page of the 1040, there's the 40. And then we got the windows or the skylight. Let's put the 5,000 there and bring it on over. So we'll bring that on over. So, and that, if I go back to the 5695, then we have, that's capped at the cost of the 2,000, and then they're basically taking 10% of that 2,000, and that's bringing us down to $200. So if I was to then put this at 200, we should then have the same calculation at the 200 still. So, and if I go under the 2,000, if I go like to 1.5, then that's going to lower. So I have to spend 2,000 to max out the 200 credit. So now we only got the 150 or 10% of the 1.5, and that of course would then be pulling over once again to the second page of the 1040 for the 150 there.